Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome once again, as always, to another helping of Mr H's Hot Pot. You join me today for day 23 of the UK lockdown, where once again I'm currently out and about taking my daily exercise early in the morning, as always, and bringing you guys along for the ride. Now this morning it's about 7:30 as I'm making this video. I'm out a little bit later, so there's no chance of seeing those deer, I'm afraid. But who knows, maybe one of them have got up late themselves, so you never know. When it does happen, when one does run across, it'll be unexpected and I'll miss it, I'll guarantee you. That's just sod's law. There's a little bit of frost on the ground this morning, and it's a little bit crisp as I'm making this video, but it looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty decent day, which always helps with the old lockdown, doesn't it? Especially if you're lucky enough to have a garden such as myself and Mrs H. I do know one or two of you out there who said you're stuck in flats and things like that, and you haven't got the opportunity to go out the same as myself, so I do feel for people like that, because when all's said and done, this lockdown period is difficult. You've just got to make the best of it, whichever way you can. Anyway, a big thank you to everybody out there who commented on yesterday's vlog. As always, I always appreciate people commenting, and you bring up some very valid points. Now, yesterday I asked people, what is it that you intend doing the moment this lockdown's lifted? What is the thing that you're promising yourself? And it's sort of getting you through. And there's been some really interesting things that people have brought up, ranging from going out and travelling to an area, such as Mr H intends to do. We intend to go out and go to Blackpool again, myself and Mrs H, probably with everybody else. We'll probably end up stuck on the motorway, won't we, the whole weekend, rather than actually getting there. But yeah, we intend going to Blackpool and enjoying some fish and chips on the old seafront, and maybe visiting Blackpool Zoo. We'd just taken out a year's pass, and then this thing came in it, so maybe we'll get to use that. And like I say, fish and chips on the seafront, Mr H's favourite part. Or nip into Coral Island, as Josh Lunt likes to do out there. It is a good emporium for taking your money, isn't it? And they range, like I say, from travelling, as some people have said, through to simply going to McDonald's again and getting your regular order. And it's whatever gets you through. Nobody's reason or whatever's getting them through is any less valid than anybody else's, is it? But many thanks for everybody who's commented. Now, speaking of comments, I've been asked a few times throughout these vlogs, what do I think this is all about? How do I think it started? Well, it's an hard question to answer, that, really. And to be honest, I don't think many of us, or a lot of us, we won't get to see or get to hear what actually happened in Wuhan, in China, to be honest. I think it'll take decades and decades before it comes out. Now, you only have to take a look at the last real man-made disaster that affected the world, which was Chernobyl, which happened in April 1986. It's April now, isn't it? That's spooky. There's one for the conspiracy theorists. Do world governments inflict disasters on us in April? But being serious for a moment, it took decades of dogged determination of people researching and looking into it. It took the collapse of the Soviet Union before the truth finally came out. And I'll be honest, I'm 46 now, and I don't think I'll ever get to know definitively what's happened with this lot. I just think it'll be kept under wraps, A, by the Chinese government, and by extension, world governments. They'll keep a lid on it. They'll not want to offend the Chinese government, so we'll just have to see, but I don't think I'll get to see. Maybe my son, little Toby James, he's 17 months old. Maybe when he's my age, he'll know what all this was about. But I don't think I'll get to know, and I don't think many of you out there will get to know either. I think we'll all be under the sod, sadly, by the time the truth comes out. Rather sobering and sombre thought, that, isn't it, thinking about one's own mortality, but there you go. I mean, my own personal theory on it is that scientists, there is a big lab in Wuhan, apparently, where this thing came from. I think they have been developing something, and it's, for whatever reason, germ warfare, just playing about, who knows, but I think it's escaped, it's got on somebody's clothing, somebody's dropped a test tube, somebody's done something they shouldn't have done, probably not following protocols, and you've got to remember that maybe they tried covering it up as well within their own little group. Because the last thing you want to do is go to your supervisor in a communist country and say, basically, I've dropped a bollock. You know, because you just disappear, don't you, in them countries. So I think that's what's happened, personally. I think it's been a man-made accident, and that's what's happened, and it's just affected the world due to the fact that the world's a lot smaller place nowadays, and we can just travel and go wherever we want. Very scary, very scary. On a good note and a happier note, some of you will probably recall that I mentioned that myself and Mrs H, we knew somebody who's been afflicted by COVID-19. We knew them tenuously. Mrs H, through her line of work, she used to work with someone, former work colleague, and her husband, unfortunately, he contracted COVID-19 and he was hospitalised with it. He's now out of hospital and he's back home, you know, recuperating and recovering, so that's a good one. Big kudos to the staff at Warrington Hospital where he was situated. And it was that strict, apparently, the rules, and they was trying to keep the people isolated, that I think it was on his birthday, all he could do with his family stood on the car park, and he was on the 3rd floor or something like that, and at a certain time, he stood up at the window, and he waved to them on his birthday, and that just shows you how serious this thing's been, and how serious the hospitals that are dealing with it are trying to keep it contained. So, you know, there you go. But that's good news that he's back home, isn't it? It does prove that it's not always a killer. Unfortunately, it is claiming many lives, but there is recovery. So if, God forbid, you do end up with this thing, you know, it doesn't always mean half a day with the Undertaker, as Fred Dibnah used to say. Anyway, like I say, there we go. So, folks, like I say, how are you all doing? Hope you're all keeping well. I'm just in a little area, this wooded area where I normally come and take my walks. Yesterday I went out to the countryside, and I don't normally come into this part of this woods, and just look at the state of it with scrambling bikes. Now I'll have to negotiate that and make my way through a little bit, but yeah, it's always nice when people have come on and they've commented. I mean, one thing that somebody said to me, they said, I've really enjoyed these vlogs, Mr H. They've been helping me through this period, but don't be offended when I say this. I don't want to see you though saying, welcome to day 152. And I do understand where you're coming from, mate. I don't want to get to day 90, I'll be honest. You know, it'll be really great when I can come on here and say this is the last one and there'll be no more of these vlogs. Although I'm sure in some ways some people will be upset because this has become part of your routine, hasn't it? And that's what we all work on as human beings, routine really. And another thing that somebody said was, I can't believe you're getting up so early in the mornings. It must be a long day for you, Mr H. You know, if it was me, I'd be doing them late in the evenings. Well, notwithstanding Mr H has broadband run by an Amster, and it's running really slow, and the time it would take me for edit the video and put it up there and get it uploaded and all that kind of good stuff would take too long. I'd be up until the early hours of the morning. Notwithstanding, I have a 17-month-old child, so having a lie-in is not an option for Mr H. Little Toby, for anyone out there who's been concerned about him, he is now sleeping a lot better. We've cracked it, myself and Mrs H. What we basically do, we take him out on the garden and we play with him, and then at a certain time we take him in for a nap, and we've just got him into a good routine. No doubt we'll just be happy with this routine, and then everything will change. We'll have to go back to work, and little Toby will be upset once more. Anyway, folks, it's now coming up to 10 minutes. The old magic 10 minutes, and it's getting a bit difficult here for Mr H to negotiate, so I think I'll wrap up today's little vlog here and now. So, folks, as always, a big thank you to everybody who's commented on these vlogs, left kind words, and has subscribed. I'm going to leave it here, and I'll join you again tomorrow when it'll be day 24 of the UK lockdown. We're heading towards the big 3-0, aren't we? So folks, as always, stay safe and bye bye for now.